And welcome to Citizens Forum on Sapiencia's channel.
Good morning.
All right. My guest today on Citizens Forum is Auwal Ibrahim Musa, Rafsanjani. He is Executive Director, Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC, and of course he's the head Transparency International Nigeria and head Amnesty International Nigeria. He's of course the Board of Trustee Chairman, Transition Monitoring Group, TMG. Welcome once again to Citizens Forum, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right. Our conversation today has to do with accountability, transparency, something you have spent lots of time, advocating for in Nigeria and holding government accountable. But then today on Citizens Forum, our focus really is on the subnationals, and that is the states where majority of us live. Now, you have been in this work, and you know for sure that when it comes to Nigeria, every Nigerian follows the National Assembly. We know what is happening there. We know when the president is sending a budget. We itemize all of these things. We want to look at what is going to education, what is going to healthcare. We follow at the national. We try to hold them accountable. The other time we are talking about our brother Dingy and what transpired. You see, every Nigerian on the street can tell you exactly what was happening then, what Akpabio had done, and all of that. But then when it comes to the state level, it seems as though Nigerians, for one reason or the other, maybe you help enlighten us, have left our governors, our legislators, and the entire apparatus of government on their own. So we don't even know what's happening. We don't even hold them accountable. I want to ask you this question. Let's begin from there. What do you think is responsible for what I might call a culture, or it might be something else?
Okay, thank you very much, and I'm glad to be part of this program. First and foremost, I think it is the major failure of Nigerians at states and local level that did not show much interest in how their state or local government, is being governed, and it also shows that their participation at the state or at the local government level is minimal, or they even simply have interest. Thirdly, there's also authoritarianism, that you see happening in some of the states, where you cannot even make simple suggestion. It will now be like an offense. So the dictatorship you see at the state by some of the state officials is also scaring many people, because we have instances where many people at the state level, they just criticize policy of the state, and they will simply be, disappearing. They will be, either arrested or even, abducted. And, up to now, as I speak to you, some of the people that have done such kind of criticism to the state's policies, they have not been seen. So, because of this brutal attack on, fellow citizens at the state level by some governors, some people are scared. And then the fourth problem is that we do not have vibrant civil society organizations at the state level that are supposed to be checkmating the excesses of the government, or even at least observe what is going on there and educate the people. So such problem, without civil society, there's no way you can be able to dictate the problems that state goes. So you can see misappropriation, you can see looting, you can see abuse of human rights, you can see all sorts of things happening. And because there's no strong civil society that can speak out, you will not be able to hear anything. Number 5, the absence of vibrant opposition political parties at the state level is also contributing to this silence and this kind of opportunity that state governor will do whatever he wants to do. Since the state governors, they have become very powerful. They are the one who nominates the senators, they nominate the House of Rep, they nominate the State Assembly, they nominate DGs, they nominate even ministers. In some cases, the president will consult with them to nominate ministers, ambassadors. So, in fact, they even determine who become the president. Governors determine who become the president. So, they are such kind of people that we need civil society, we need media. Now, unfortunately, in most places, the media at the state level is only reporting government activities at the state level. They hardly do criticism, they hardly do investigative journalism. The media and civil society and even the political elite will all keep quiet. Definitely, you will see the kind of fraud that we are seeing, the kind of misgovernance that we are seeing at the state level. So it is important that civil society organization, developed and be able to respond to some of these, challenges. And for the media, I think it is important that we have independent media that can be able to at least speak the truth and maybe reporting the activities of the state governor, but also be able to speak the yearning and expression of the people at the state. So many things are happening, but largely the state report is dominated by the state government activities. So sometimes, if you don't balance this, it will be difficult for the citizens at the state level to even know the truth, because they will always be getting one side of the story or the information. So for me, I think, we need to have a strong, vibrant, civil society, strong media, strong, political elite who are responsible, who should be responsible for ensuring that at least they contribute in ensuring that the voices of the people are also heard. I think also it is important that if we at level, they should also show constructive display of constructive opposition to some of the policies or some of the action that happens at the state level. But because unfortunately many of the political parties, they are the same, they are not really ideological political parties, so you will hardly hear anything different from what the ruling party is doing. These are some of the things that I believe has silenced and also gives opportunity to the state governors and their assembly, who are just more like actually houseboy of the governor, to be able to do whatever they are doing without check.
All right. Now, very wonderful explanation there. But then, if we are going to strip what you've just said naked, then we are going to put them in different baskets. And for me, one of the baskets that really come on top, I think we should begin with, is that of fear of, oppression. You've talked about, and we know examples in different states where people have gone even on social media and said something, and then they've disappeared. We've seen pressmen who have also disappeared without mentioning any state. But then, the question I'm going to ask you now is this. There are people who think this fear that we have just can't be surmounted, and so let's leave things the way it is. But then let us talk about one other idea that people threw forward on the table, and I want to know what you think about it. And some people think that there is actually this fear, and it is also possible for governors to winch on people, crack down on them, whether they're people in the media or people in civil society or just private citizens who sometimes even go on Facebook, for instance, and say something, and next you don't see them. And some people think it's actually the culture we have of not coming together, right? That it is easy to target somebody who is calling attention to power, for instance, in the States. It is easy for somebody who is calling attention to accountability and expenditure of the government and things like that, or abuse of power. That it is easy for them to go after this person because it seems as though Nigerians are generally docile when it comes to holding governors accountable. And so because we have this culture, the opposition party, in Anambra State, for instance, I'm not aware that there is an opposition political party. You can also replicate that in other states. When it comes to time for election, then they begin to look for how they campaign and things like that. Then you know about them. That when we are docile, it now becomes possible for the political elite in the state to target one person who is talking. If you think this is true, how then do you think the people, what kind of education, what kind of enlightenment, can happen for people to change this attitude such that when we feel a problem, and we are all feeling that problem, from security to whatever, it's everybody talking, or most of the people talking, not just one person talking. We wake up in the morning and say, what has this person said about what is happening in the state? But we build that culture to say, we are all in this, let's talk about this.
Yeah, so you're actually very right. We have, citizens that are lacking political education, because if people are politically conscious, if people, they know their rights, if people, they actually understand democracy, if people really want to participate in the democracy and governance at their state level, definitely there's no way we can just leave the state governor and his associate to emasculate everybody. It means that we need to design strategy to educate. You can be a professor, but you may not be politically conscious. You understand?
True.
You can be a doctor, but you may not be politically conscious.
True.
Because you may not know your right. You may not know, how to demand accountability. But if we have political education, it means that we should be concerned with the way and manner in which our state are governed. We should be asking questions. If they present a budget, is this budget reflective of aspiration? Was there any need assessment? What are the mechanisms for implementing this budget? You cannot be doing the same thing with what the military is doing, which is budget for envelope budget.
Yeah.
You allocate a particular amount without need assessment, without knowing what works or what does not work in the previous budget. You cannot be doing that, because if you are doing that, you are actually doing budget for yourself, not for, okay? So there's need for us to activate opposition political parties at the state level. Political parties are not meant only for contesting election or for only being busy during the election. The opposition political party is supposed to be providing alternative. In fact, they're supposed to constitute a shadow government in terms of raising policy issues, in terms of criticizing things, in terms of drawing attention of the citizens to see what the state government is doing is not in conformity with what the people want, and that's why they are also campaigning to take power. Not that they will just wait until when it is only during the election. That is not really providing the function of political party. Again, there's no way you can have a state with population of over 1 million, 2 million, and then they just keep quiet. Everybody kept quiet. Everybody is not able to speak on the injustice. Everybody is not able to speak on the maladministration. Everybody is not talking about the monumental corruption and looting that is going on in the state. And then you expect miracle to come from somewhere. No, they have to rise up because they are citizens of the state. They are, bona fide members of the whatever, whether it is the political party, whether it is the civil society. They have the right to demand for accountability on what the governor is doing and what the state apparatus is doing. If they don't do that, they keep quiet, it means that the kind of impunity that we see will continue. Thirdly, I think there's need for the state, for the Inspector General of Police to restrain misuse of the police by state governors, because many a times the state governors connive with the police to abuse the right of
citizens,
critics at the state. So police should not be a tools in the hands of governors to be inflicting, all sort of, abuses of their right. So therefore, we need to, and that is part of the reason why many Nigerians are even afraid when it comes to issues of the state police. That even now, as you are having police that is supposed to be controlled at the federal level, governors are finding their way to deal with the people they consider to be in opposition using the police. Now, what of when they are the one that is solely in charge of those police, which means that political repression, injustice and abuses, maltreatment will still be more than what we are saying without people rising up. So I think the maturity of our political elite, the maturity of the non-state actors, at the state level, maybe perhaps has not reached that level where we can balance and ensure accountability on how the governors also may be using security, just in order to achieve their own interests. And that is why we need to be very careful on crafting or on demanding for this so-called state police, because the governors are known to be very notorious in many instances, on using forces to silence and repress and oppress opposition. And therefore, we should be very, very careful. But I think, in all this, we must rise up if we are going to defend democracy in Nigeria. People cannot be operating democracy and without Democrats. We cannot simply because of this fear allow people to be using our own collective resources, our collective name at the state level, to be perpetuating impunity and all sort of misgovern in the state. We must speak out. We must speak out and we must demand for justice. And this now brings me to the role of Nigerian Bar Association.
Okay. Hello. Oh, still Citizens Forum. Sapiencia. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
We all have branches of MPA, NUJ, Nigerian Labour Congress, and other democratic organizations. They must come together and be able to help and salvage the state and give these people at the state the voices. They are concerned. Otherwise, their presence may not be, useful in defining democracy and accountability. So I'm calling on all these organized organizations to be able to champion the cause of the people, be able to demand for justice. We can't have MPA and then injustices are happening at the state level, perpetuated by the state apparatus, and then there's no voice from them. We cannot see, also abuses of people's rights in their, in terms of labor, and then the Nigerian labor at the state level are not speaking. Only at the federal level that you see them speaking. We cannot see Nigerian Union of Journalists at the state level, and then things are not coming. Investigative journalism are not coming, and when their members are also attacked by the state apparatus, and then there will be silence or there will not be much action to demand for accountability on what happens, or why that should happen. I think it is important. And you have, even university teachers that are supposed to be all part of the non-state actors that will, at least voice out and demand for accountability on how things are happening at the state level. So if all these, silences are happening, then you can imagine how do you expect a grassroots person who do not actually have the necessary education and awareness on how governance happens. How do you expect him or her to talk when those ones that are supposed to provide leadership, to provide direction, are keeping quiet?
All right, quite wonderful. Now, I don't know if you can do this in 3 minutes. When you were talking, you really did talk about the Inspector General of Police, for instance, and how he must use his powers to, check our governors and how they abuse his men on the field in their states, right? And that brings me to something our governors do get away with. For instance, in Nigeria, the Electricity Act 2023 has, unbundled power, no longer in the exclusive list, but in the concurrent list, where, governors now have more powers to generate, to distribute, to transmit and distribute powers within their state. We've not seen our governors taking advantage of it. If they've started, maybe they've started, but we've not seen them doing this. Also, when our governors try to talk about when you see insecurity in any state, and our governors try to hide under that finger that says, well, we are not in control of the security apparatus, but they are members, very powerful members of the Nigerian Police Council. And we've not seen our governors take advantage of that power the Constitution grants them to ensure security in their state. The third one I want to also talk about is the palliative economy, which we now run. Our governors are running away from the fact that, for instance, it just rained. I don't know where you are, but it just rained in Anambra State, for instance, just yesterday. And today, we should begin to see governors around the southeast talk about subsidies in agriculture to ensure, look at what's happening around the country. Agriculture should be the big deal for our governors now. They don't do all of this. The question I want to ask you, you've talked about all of the actors that must come on board and ensure all of this enlightenment start. But I want you to talk about civil society and how civil society will and should partner with the media, for instance, at state level, to begin this kind of enlightenment that gives people, that really enlightens people, that, wait a minute, our governors can do all of these things. Because as it is right now, our governors have gotten away with spreading that narrative that all of these things are for the federal government. And it seems as though the only thing they agree they can do is palliatives once in a while. How will this marriage happen, in your opinion?
Thank you very much. Let me just even start with the last one.
Yeah.
The palliative that you see them busy doing, it is just an avenue for another diversion of public taxpayers' money. Because it's a shame that government had to wait for disaster to happen, before they could put in programs that will alleviate the suffering of the people. And even if we are to ask, this palliative, this so-called palliative, is this removing the poverty? Is it dealing with the suffering of Nigerian people? No, in fact, it's increasing. If you can go and borrow billions of dollars in the name of the people, and then you will now call the definitely this is organizing more poverty, and that is why we have been, cautioning the government that, look, this thing that you are doing is even a shame. It's a shame because you created artificial poverty and suffering for people, and now you are now coming to give them, peanuts. That's if at all you are able to give anything, So for me, palliative is not even, it shouldn't be a core program that state governments should now be seen to be doing that. The state government should put in place policies and programs and legal frameworks that can actually ensure economic sustainability, economic generation, revenue generation, good utilization of those revenue. But what we are seeing now, many of them have become so lazy that they don't even want to be, creative. They don't want to, work to ensure that they generate additional revenue in the state, which we have so many. Every state in Nigeria is full of, resources. But utilizing these resources, they don't have idea of, about it. Only thing that you see most of the state governors are doing are spending what they collect from the federal government. Yeah. So if this is the only way to do governance, definitely expect any happiness. You cannot expect any boosting of agriculture or industry. How many state governors have dedicated effort to say, look, we have to put to at least even one industry in our state that will be producing or competing with other states? You do not see that happening. So the state governors, many of them have become so lazy, apart from impunity and using state resources to be traveling to Abuja and abroad. You you will hardly see that. And people, unfortunately, they didn't know if the state governor or if the legislators have come to do constituency project. It is not their own personal money. But you can see some people, they will be clapping, they will be happy. Oh, this our representative, he has pulled this in. Personalization of public, resources is what you see most of these political officers are doing. If, as a legislator, whether at the state or at the national level, you have collected money to come and do constituency project, it is not your money. It is the public taxpayers' money, and the people should also determine what project should actually the member should do. If you now only want to determine what you want to do without consultation, without consulting the constituents that you represent, it means that it is a personal spending at public expense. So if you look at this opportunity that the law has given to the state governors in terms of electricity generation, they are not interested, because it means that they will work, and anything they will work is they are not, because the whole idea of coming in most of the political class is to capture political power for personal self-aggrandizement, not for the public interest. If it is for public interest, governance at the state will not be the way it is. Okay, so that is why I think it's important that we need to encourage citizens at the state level to form credible, formidable, strong civil society that will be responding to issues of governance at their state level. If you do not have that, definitely the governors will be doing whatever they like and they will get away with it. But I think it is important, it is right time now, those existing structures of non-state actors, they should know their function, they should know why they are there, they should know that they have responsibility to speak out, to demand for accountability, to suggest to the government at the state level right policies and programs that can alleviate poverty, that will bring about peace and security, that will bring about justice, that will bring in about opportunity for the people at the state level to participate in socio-economic activities at their state. With that, you will be able to eliminate unemployment. You will be able to eliminate a lot of challenges that even the state consider to be burden on them, because by the time people are economically, they will be able to be contributing to the state, not even the state that will be contributing to them. But when you keep them in perpetual poverty and only you come and be giving them palliative of 2,000 naira, 5,000 naira, you think you are alleviating poverty, or you think you are helping them, you think you are doing favor to them, that is a deception.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Auwal Ibrahim Musa, Rafsanjani, Executive Director, Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC, Head of Transparency International Nigeria, and Head of Amnesty International Nigeria, and of course, Board of Trustee Chairman, Transition Monitoring Group, TMG. Thank you for taking time out to really enlighten us on all of this.
Thank you very much.
And it's also to prepare your mind, as your people will say, it is serious damua that I will give you from now on. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate this, sir.
Yes, no problem. You're welcome.
All right. Okay, still Citizens Forum on Sapiencia's channel. And of course, Jude Geoman, I really thank my guests for taking time out. Really gave us so much to unpack today on Citizens Forum. He went ahead to enlighten us about the role different groups need to play. He talked about NANS, for instance, ASU, for instance, organized groups like labor, organized labor in the states. Talked about the NBA, of course, the almighty media, and the CSOs has to play in the state. And he also did admit that when you come to the state level, you find out that the civil society organizations, I also wonder that, do they really exist? In Anambra State, for instance, did they exist? Yes, we do hear all of these names, we hear programs and all, but when you really want civil society groups to step up and hold government accountable, We see that happen at the national level to some degree, but at the state level, it's almost missing. And this is across states in the country. Also talked about the media and ownership of the media. How, I mean, we know that in every state in the country, government does own media, but the role private media must also play in ensuring that we hold government accountable. But then in all of this conversation, the end point is still going to be the people. And so while organized groups must play their role to set the ball rolling, how about enlightenment? How enlightened also is the everyday man and woman in Nigeria to the fact that they need to hold government at the state level accountable and not just talk about the federal? Yes, we must talk about the federal, but we all live in the states and we need to have that conversation. Yeah, you're welcome, sir.
Beautiful morning to you.
Yes, thank you.
And my regards to the TNG chairman of Russia.
Yeah, here we hear.
Because they have so many portfolios. But this TNG was the one that entered me.
Yeah.
You see, that's what we're talking about. Mr. Ezekiel, reaching from manager.
You're welcome, sir.
You see, that's what we're talking about all this while. That the role of different agencies, if we are asked, this set of the crop of leaders will not take us for granted. But because those who ought to speak are not speaking, it now becomes maybe those who may not have the willpower to do that things other than to call on aid. But I want to assure our people that the narration has changed in the East. At least you can bear witness today that within our nature, we have so many private radio stations, 3 of us, and people are coming up, telling you how it is. And it is intending on the government, not only the federal, on the state. That's what you said. The civil liberty and every other people seem to have gone moribund. When it comes to national issue, they're speaking. But I would like them to pick up the challenge thrown to them by this man from the north. That you can't only speak one-sided. You speak from both sides of it, both the federal and state, to checkmate the excesses of this those in governance, for transparency purposes. So let our people make use of our media houses, like the Sapienza, that has gotten this platform for us to speak. And whatever we said is international. Are you getting it? Just like you said, opposition party down here is all about individuality. But when your case is settled, the person becomes a confounded human being. It doesn't really matter. See, a doctor called me yesterday.
Okay.
He was big to speak in Canada. Imagine in Nigeria here. He was given a platform to speak in Canada. Yeah. Are you getting it?
Yes.
But down here, he's been neglected. Even the idea he got that donors outside the country will bring money, the state government, sorry, he's in Abia. Let me be precise.
Yeah.
The governor turned it down. And yet we're praising him on daily basis. Are you getting it? Why? Because he thought his thinking is from another divide. Because the former gave me an appointment. What does that mean? If somebody has something that you need to grow the system, you use that person. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. Are you getting it? But look at it now. He's a young man, fine gentleman, and because he did, it's rare to be found. He was lamented. I said, my brother, forget about it. One day, they will be in an occasion they invited, and you are the guest speaker, so they are ashamed. They said he has been meeting them in such places, and they had their space himself. So if the civil liberty opposition in Nigeria can look up and fight for the masses, let me tell you, in Anambra, in Southeast now, I don't know if you have heard about SEECA. It is called Southeast Electricity Consumers Association. Have you heard about it?
I don't think I have.
You will soon heard about them. Which is the entire Southeast, not only Anambra. The meeting was held, the first meeting was held 2 days ago across the Southeast to checkmate the excesses of EADC. Are you getting it? So people will know they are right. When you are supposed to pay and what they are not supposed to pay. Are you getting it? Because we are living in a society where anyone can come up, say anything, and nobody challenges it, especially on chat. If something is happening to you, somebody will walk past you, can't even ask, what is the problem? Because he thought that it's not his business. But now, we are suffering it. If the man up there is complaining of this, when we know that side is about coming life, what we know, that somebody can stand for them for 1 million. But here, we keep quiet as if all is well with us. All is not well with us. We believe in constructive criticism, not just you said to be go in opposition for nothing's sake. Even when there's nothing to oppose. Are you getting it? But to checkmate the government,
all right.
Yeah, you got it right, yeah, you got it wrong. So I'm calling everything can hurry, at least within this energizes, to make use of Sapientia Radio. In your view, the government is listening. Let us become the pressure group, because they can be acting as emperor. During our times, most of our phone numbers are being tampered with, because they use our name and call on every station. But we don't care, because we want to tell you how it is. As long as I've not done you anything wrong, I'm not afraid of that. Are you getting it? So let others, let civil society, let every name we can call them, please help the masses. You must not be in government to influence the government. Are you getting it? You can be from your corner and then touch the lives of people around you. Just like the man, what you're doing, it's a fantastic one. You are cutting across board, getting people from far and near. It's not a matter of on the thing. You know, one of the things is known for it's all about taking Azuka. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. But then, so long as we remain in Anichaga. All right, but then thank you very much for your kind words. All right, still Citizens Forum on Sapiencia's channel, and we are still talking about holding government accountable and citizens generally spreading that awareness that for everything we demand from the federal government, there is also a complementary role from the state government. And when it comes to a better life, when it comes to security, when it comes to welfare, when it comes to providing, it's actually the state government that the people must hold accountable first. We should have started this conversation from the local government level. But then also, thanks to our state governors across the 36 states, our local governments are officially dead. You know, even though the funeral, proceedings different in different states, right? And so we need to really start calling attention. For instance, if we want to revive the local government structure, we're not going to call on the federal government. It's still the state governors we are going to hold accountable. And when we also look at the whole culture of not having the knowledge or the orientation to hold government accountable, it is because there is absence of local government. If there was local government, functional, vibrant local government, the youth would know exactly what governance is all about. And that is also a perfect platform to start grooming leaders, where people understand what responsibility is, when they understand what role is, when they understand who should do what, and accountability and all of that. And so if we start grooming people at the local government level, by the time they get to the state, get to politics at the state level, which is more expensive and which is more given to different kind of manipulation and godfatherism and all of that, if we start building people at the local government level where they get into position because we know them, we know their parents, we know their mothers, we know their family history, and all of that. And where it is also difficult, or more difficult, let me put it that way, where it is more difficult for them to get in and forget the people who sent them there because they live with us, by the way. Then we wouldn't be having all of these issues where people don't even understand. Nigerians across the 36 states really do not understand what government and governance really is. And so we'll continue to have that conversation today. To pick one more call, or is this time for us to round off the program? I think it's time for us to say the goodbyes today. But then, in all, it's just to know that the whole essence of today's conversation, we actually started this last week. And so last week we had a guest, a young Nigerian who, even though he's outside of the country on some function, but somebody a young Nigerian who has been in politics and, has really been around, held some positions within parties. They've also come together, form a political party. Yes, didn't win a state or win a local government, and so they were the registered. But this is somebody who has actually been in the field. And our conversation last week was trying to encourage young Nigerians on the need to start getting involved in the process. It's just something we need to start doing, right? And today we've continued the conversation with also holding government accountable and how we all have a role to play. And thanks to my guest today, he really called attention to how organized groups must stand up And when it comes to the Southeast, because yes, he painted a general picture that you can find this structure around the country. So anywhere you go to in Nigeria, for instance, you're going to find organized labor at the state level. You're going to find independent media at the state level. You're going to find the NBA. You're going to find the NUJ. You're going to find NANS at the state level. So it's complete everywhere. But let us also not forget that when it comes to the Southeast, for instance, there are different groupings that also bring us together. And we must take advantage of these groups to become a voice. Because being a voice when it comes to politics, holding accountable, you don't have to be a politician to hold anyone accountable. You just need to be concerned about the rising cost of living, for instance. You need to be concerned about insecurity. You need to be concerned about the quality of education our children are getting. You need to be concerned about our hospitals. That's all you need to be concerned about to start being a voice. And we can use our voice as organized church groups, for instance, youth groups in churches. That's a powerful, when it comes to the Southeast, that's a powerful movement in the Southeast. But then what do we really exist for in these groups? We need to start understanding the power we have, right? What do these groups, and when you come to the Southeast, you come to Onitsha, for instance, we have different clubs and associations, we call them clubs, right? So we need to start asking ourselves, what do we exist for? We feel different pinch, as parents, we feel different pinch, as parents, we feel different pinch. As workers, as importers, as businessmen, we feel different. We have different problems. How can we use all of these platforms to speak? Because like we identified today on the program, it's more difficult for an individual to be the voice or a voice. That's too much responsibility. Not only too much responsibility, but also makes individuals targets. Like my guest said today, we're still looking for some journalists in different states. Kaduna, for instance, we're still looking for some people. We can go on and mention the states that all of these things do happen. But, it's easy to pick on an individual, but when groups rise up and start playing their role, and for all of the groups, especially the ones he mentioned, from NANS to ASU to the media to NBA to organized labor to CSOs to NUJ and all of these people, there is a sad trend in Nigeria. When people talk about total state capture, it actually comes. Some people think that has happened in Nigeria, right? Where every institution, seem to have compromised. But then we must be honest about what and where this compromise comes from. It's money. We need to fight that culture in our country where we simply talk because we want money stuffed into our mouths, and start building something that stays. Because all of the people who we can talk about and who are respected today are people who did not play that card. And so we should start grooming ourselves, men and women, to start playing those kind of role in our society, because our society needs us now more than ever. So that role where organizations, especially leaders of groups like this, simply constitute themselves into some visitation panels that go from one government office to the other, seeking for funds and all of that. We need to kill that. We need to kill that culture where we invite all of these people when it's time for us to do one or two things because we're expecting money for them. The mouth that has taken or has eaten never remains the same. All right, Citizens Forum definitely will be here, same time, same station next week. My name remains Jude Geoman. Have a blessed day ahead.